Glasses on. Wait a minute.
All right, then I'm gonna start preparing the meeting to go live, which should be any minute now, because I'm getting better at this, you guys.
No doubt, no doubt.
Okay, we're on now. Welcome to 2022. Happy New Year to everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Karen Lee. I'm the administrative consultant for the Community Preservation Committee. And a couple housekeeping issues before we get started. We are having our application workshop at our next regular meeting on February 1st. There's a registration link on our Facebook page, and later this week, it will be up on the city website. The applications and the information will be available on the city website page. Just type in Community Preservation Committee and you should be able to pull that up. So that will be up later this week. I think that's it. Happy New Year. And Bob McCarroll is the chair of our committee, and introduce the rest of the committee. So welcome and thank you for joining us.
Why, thank you, Karen, and Happy New Year, everyone. Karen, while we're moving on, can you email the remaining members of the committee just a reminder that we have a meeting tonight?
Okay.
Because it may have been forgotten in the New Year's change. So we have present tonight Juanita Martinez, who is the representative of the Conservation Commission, Clinton Harris, representative of the Park Commission, Gloria DiFilippo, representative of the Planning Board, Lamar Cook, one of our three neighborhood representatives, and Bob McCarroll, me. I represent the Springfield Preservation Trust, Inc., and we hope that a few of our other members will be joining us, but we have a quorum. So we will be moving forward. Karen sent you the minutes of November 9 and December 7th. So if you had a chance to review them, if someone would make a motion to accept them.
I make a motion to accept the minutes of November and December.
Thank you.
Second that.
Second. Laura, Juanita seconds it. So all in favor, and as usual, we will do a roll call. So Juanita?
Yes.
Clinton?
Yes.
Gloria?
Yes.
Lamar?
Yes.
And Bob is yes. The next item on the agenda is anti-wage theft policy. And I forget whether those who are on the meeting tonight were here in November when we met with Lisa Clausen and City Councilor / State Representative Orlando Ramos. Orlando spoke to us about the fact that the city has a wage theft ordinance that applies to municipal projects. And given that CPA deals also with municipal but also private projects, he wanted us to have our own policy. And Lisa explained to us what wage theft was, and we can talk about that in case anyone has forgotten. And the consensus was that, yes, we wanted to move forward with adopting something. And in the last couple months, Kathy Breck from the Law Department and Lisa and one of Lisa's co-workers have been working on it, and they're here tonight to present us a fair wage compliance, which has the standards for fair wage, and then and they're coming back in next month to actually talk about what might be some of the penalties if down the line some of our grantees and their contractors don't comply. But what we want to do is to adopt it so we at least, as we put the application out, there will be an actual certificate that the applicants will be signing saying that they understand that there's now a fair wage requirement. So I don't know whether Kathy, you want to start off, or Lisa. I think as Lisa's here more to answer any questions that come up. So Kathy, do you just want to bring us up to speed? I think has everyone gotten the email that Karen sent today and have a copy of the Fair Wage Compliance Certificate, which really carries the meat of what fair wage compliance involves?
Everyone has the document?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Kathy Breck, again, Deputy City Solicitor from the City Law Department. Tonight, we are talking with you about the Fair Wage Compliance Certificate. This certificate places the responsibility of monitoring. This is for grantees that are grants of over $50,000 and that are not City of Springfield projects, because the city is under other rules for very similar things. But so it's a 50,000 over threshold that this would apply to. And we ask that the applicants for grants fill out the certificate, making them take ownership of the possibility that if there's any sort of wage theft or wage misclassification, or a variety of different kinds of wage theft that Lisa could answer questions about. She was educating me about it. Thank you, Lisa. And Chris Soros, their attorney. There are so many different ways in which workers may or may not be paid properly, may not be classified properly. Sometimes contractors and subcontractors don't carry the appropriate insurance. They don't pay for workers' compensation, et cetera. And this certificate is really to put the grantee on notice, or the applicant really on notice, that if they get a grant from the CPC and they hire contractors and subcontractors, that both they and the contractors and subcontractors will be responsible if these wage theft type violations are happening. And it requires that the grantee not hire folks that have been found in violation of these types of standards and laws within the past 5 years, and a variety of other things. So we wanted to make sure, and Bob wanted to make sure, that this was ready for the committee to include in the application packets. And then ultimately, if an applicant is awarded a grant, then they would also have to have their contractors and their subcontractors sign the same document. And you'll notice in the second paragraph that it has to be signed under the pains and penalties of perjury. So that gives it an additional weight, and then the person has to sign at the bottom. And there are a number of various sections that describe the various laws in Massachusetts that the contractors and subcontractors would have to comply with for a construction project. That's the basic overview. And then, as Bob mentioned, we weren't able to come to complete closure on the potential penalties if something were to happen, whether a grantee would forfeit their entire grant, have to repay all the money. We're continuing to have conversations about that second piece, and we hope to bring that back to you in February, but we wanted to get you this document so that it can be posted on the page and be included in the applications. Any questions?
I have a question, Kathy. This is Ralph Slate.
Hi, Ralph.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. So the question that I have is, since the CPC is just sort of the recommending body for the city council to actually award the funds, why would the contractors, the applicants, sign contracts or sign agreements with us rather than the city council?
They actually won't be signing agreements with either the Community Preservation Committee or City Council. Contractors and subcontractors would enter into agreements with the folks that get the grants. But the
Okay, but they're
issue
signing,
is-
they are signing something though. They're signing, like this application has somebody's signature and it's on CPC letterhead.
Right, so the person that's applying for a Community Preservation Committee grant
Mhm.
has to fill this out and sign it under the pains and penalties and perjury that if they're awarded the grant and if they receive the money, they will comply with all these restrictions. And they will, it'll be their responsibility to make sure their contractors and subcontractors comply with them as well.
Right. Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, I guess so. It just seems a little odd to me that instead of sort of signing something that's coming from the body that's awarding them the money, they're signing something with the body that's recommending that their project be funded.
I think it's mostly because the CPC will have the oversight
Okay.
over compliance with the contractual terms. And the city council doesn't have a role in that process. That's the Community Preservation Committee. And that's why it's drafted that way.
Okay, so then is the CPC then responsible for sort of verifying and overseeing this?
That's part of what we're talking about in the second aspect of, I don't know if you heard me in the beginning, there's a second
sorry,
aspect
didn't.
of creating a policy about how this is all going to work, how it will be overseen, who's going to determine compliance or non-compliance. We're still working on that aspect of it, but we wanted to get the real nuts and bolts of it into the compliance certificate for the applicants, so that everybody would be on notice. If to the extent it applies to them, it only applies to folks getting a grant of over $50,000 and
Right.
not a city project.
Okay.
Just want to put them on notice that these are responsibilities they will undertake if they do get a grant.
I would just speak up to add that it's in keeping with city council policies that city council has already passed ordinances and policies putting wage theft protections on projects that get city contracts or that they give tax relief to.
Hi, as Clinton Harris, I have a question as well. How will hi everybody and Happy New Year to all of you.
Thank you.
Well,
Kathy, how will the applicants know who of this contractors or subcontractors may have been in violation? How will they get to know that?
That was actually one of the questions I had. And I was concerned about making the person getting the grant responsible and being subject to all the penalties. And that's something that we're continuing to talk about. Lisa might have some insight in that. She and the Carpenters Union attorney have articles and documentation and studies that where developers are doing these projects, that oftentimes the developers are aware that contractors and subcontractors are not complying with the various wage laws. Something I was concerned about is the average homeowner probably wouldn't know, and how would they be able to check that? So that's something that we're continuing to talk about. I don't know, Lisa, if you would like to weigh in on that.
Sure. There are different state and websites. The Attorney General has one that lists every one that they have cited for a wage theft violation. There's also a website that the Division of Accidents and Insurance maintains of contractors that have been cited for not having workers' compensation. There's a Department of Labor website as well around wage theft. So it is possible to check those. But also the idea of it is that each contractor is self-declaring through signing the agreement that they have not had a violation. So it's the general contractor would sign it and they would give it to each of their subcontractors. And if a subcontractor was further subbing work out, they would be giving this document to that subcontractor who would then sign and have to swear whether they've had a violation in the last 5 years or not. And, you know, quite frankly, there are a number of, it's a huge problem. There are a number of contractors that have been found, and it's not that there's an allegation, but that there's actually been substantiated evidence by a state or federal agency of wage theft. So there are, the AG's list is quite huge, but there are hundreds and hundreds and thousands of contractors who have never had a violation. And so the idea is that, you know, when there's some taxpayer funds that are involved in a project, it's taking a little bit extra care to make sure that a grantee who's moving forward with the project with those funds is ensuring that contractors on their project are not one of those that have had a recent violation. But it's through,
Thank you.
it's through them signing it that they have not had one. So it's not that each grantee is going to have to go and do extensive research or anything like that on each contractor.
Very good, Lucy. Thank you. Would not be, we don't need to refer them to the website.
Part of what we're still going to be discussing, and this is a policy piece, but on the whole, our approach where we have, for example, with the city has already passed an ordinance, the city of Springfield has already passed an ordinance around its own city contracted work, but also private work that's getting tax relief. It's where, in that case, the recipient of the tax relief, the developer, would sign committing that any of their subcontractors will not have had this. They're not signing that they are having to go, that they've checked every website on it, but that it's each contractor they hire is going to be doing the affirmation on whether or not they've had a violation of wage theft. And then they, the way the city ordinances for the tax relief work is that they would put that contract language. There is a penalty, a payback if wage theft does happen on the tax relief, but they would pass it into that contract. So the developer would put it in the contract with the general contractor, who would then be liable if there's wage theft. And so the, you know, any general contractor, if they have that, is going to put that into their contract with their subs, so that if a subcontractor is cheating its workers and is caught cheating and there's a penalty, that they are, you know, they're responsible for that amount. And that's how it's worked in other communities as well, where these policies and ordinances have moved forward.
But since we're dealing, for example, I'm sorry, Bob. I'm sorry, Bob.
No, go on, Clinton.
I was going to say, since we're also, I'm sorry, since we're also dealing with the homeowners who are probably less informed.
There's the policy as it's with the certificate that Kathy sent out, or that Karen sent out, has that it begins with any grants of over $50,000. And so that was the way to make sure that any homeowners are getting exempted, because a homeowner getting a grant from the CPC would be a smaller amount than that.
Very good. Thank you so much.
And any other questions? All right. So as everyone, Ralph, I don't think you were here when I asked, did you actually get your draft copy of the compliance certificate?
Yes, I did receive that, yes.
Okay. So I guess at this point, what I'd like is a motion that we adopt the Fair Wage Compliance Certificate as something that we will be including in applicant packets, and ultimately in there will be fair wage compliance wording put into contracts of those folks that the City Council ultimately votes to fund.
Yeah, so moved.
All right.
Second.
A second. Was that you, Gloria, that seconded? Yeah, all right. So the vote, so Ralph,
Yes.
Gloria,
Yes.
Clinton,
Yes.
Juanita,
Yes.
Lamar,
Yes.
all right, and Bob is a yes. So we have adopted this. It will be part of the packet that we're going to be discussing a couple items further down.
Excuse me,
And
Bob?
then,
Rhonda
Yeah.
is here as well. You may not be able to see that.
oh yeah,
Yes,
I didn't. Hi
I'm here.
Rhonda, Happy
I'm
New
here.
Year.
Hi, Happy New
Ah.
Year. I'm sorry, my clock, at 6 o'clock came before I knew it.
Well, better late than never. So welcome, Rhonda. For those viewing us, Rhonda Sherrill is another one of our neighborhood representatives on the committee. And so, Rhonda, were you part of this whole discussion? Or you
I
witnessed it?
didn't hear everything. But I'm pretty
All
sure
right.
doing.
So do you want to vote or do you want to abstain? It's up to you.
Can I just hear what the vote was briefly? Because I read over the stuff.
Well, it is to adopt the Fair Wage Compliance Certificate, which will be part of our application package, so that applicants are saying that they are not guilty of wage theft, and they will then be asking if they are fortunate in getting a grant that their contractors and subcontractors are not guilty of wage theft.
Oh, yes, I remember us having, yes, I vote yes.
All right. So, and I think I vote yes, so it is taken care of. Kathy will be returning next month, perhaps with Lisa, so that we can talk about what are the penalties if indeed someone is found guilty of wage theft. But I want to thank Lisa and her compatriot Chris and Kathy Breck for having hammered this out and gotten it to us. So very good, and we'll see you next month then.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Happy New Year, everybody. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks.
So moving on with the agenda, the next item is project contract extension requests. I think we only had two that we haven't already handled. Is that correct, Karen? Is it only the Parsons apartment building and the French row houses?
That is correct.
Yeah, and Roger Roberge could not be with us tonight, but he said he will be here next month. Is that, Aaron, is that it?
Ye-
He's not
yes,
here, but he will
Yes,
be
he
here.
got a conflict, so he said he could be here next month.
Okay. All right. So moving on then to the 2022 app.
Did we
yeah,
miss,
Juanita?
did we miss REO prevailing wage?
Oh, yes, thank you. So I put this on because City Councilor Victor Davila wanted to speak to us about REO and prevailing wage, which are sort of two separate issues. But as Karen mentioned earlier, Victor had a death in the family and is out of town. So we will we will carry this also over to our February meeting if he wants to attend. So Karen had sent out in her packet the draft 2022 application instructions and cover pages. And I hope everyone got them. And,
Do you want me to pull that up on the screen?
yeah, that would be helpful. Now, once again, this is the packet that we have on the website that tells people how to do an application. We really, other than the cover page, which is a set format, we do not have a set application to deal with. people put it in their own narrative, but in the order that we asked for in the instruction cover sheet.
Okay. Is everybody see that okay, or?
Yes.
So Karen, why don't you just go over some of the, let's call it the substantive changes you're recommending?
Okay, some of this is just, word changes. So I added this part about a standard fillable form because we don't have a regular form and people are sending in what they want. So I just thought I would clarify it a little bit here in this paragraph. And then added information about the historic preservation questions. And I had a couple questions on, wait, okay. No, okay, number E or letter E. Is this okay the way this is here?
So Karen, why don't you read it? Because I, for example, can't see
it.
what
Okay.
it is.
Proposals 50,000 and under are exempt from the following requirement. For proposals involving construction activity, the grantee must include a certification that they have not been found guilty of wage theft and will not use contractors, subcontractors found guilty of wage theft. A compliance certificate will be provided for your use.
That seems a little backwards. I mean, couldn't you make it in the positive and say for proposals involving et cetera, and then after it say proposals $50,000 and other are exempt from this requirement?
I can type that in.
Well, just like flip the order.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it just could be for projects over $50,000. One must provide whatever.
Yeah, that would fine. That'd be fine.
Is it
And I think we need
50,000
to make it.
and over? I mean, or 50, because you can't have 50,000 and under and 50,000 and over. So that's why it was
I would
written
say
like
50.
that.
Oh, so I would say
Proposals
for
over
projects-
50,000.
Right. That makes sense for proposals over 50,000 and then continue.
And the other question I have is, the proposal is a little vague there. Is the threshold that they're asking for $50,000 or that their entire project is 50,000 and they may be asking for less?
What we have is for if you're asking for more than 50,000.
Okay, so then it should say for funding requests. There should be something, I think, that makes that a little bit more specific, because the way that it's worded right now, if somebody has a $100,000 project and they're asking for $40,000, you could read into this that they're not exempt, because the proposal on that sheet, it's going to say that the entire project is a $100,000 project. There's nothing that sort of says that the 50,000 is the requested amount.
Yeah, you're right, Ralph. So
Yeah.
for
That makes sense,
For
Ralph, because
grant-
you're right. It could be interpreted either way.
so for grant requests of over 50,000,
Yeah,
did it?
yeah, that would work.
And clearly the the compliance certificate will be part of the packet. So I think the wording that I think was sort of toward the end of that, which is we will make available or whatever, see certificate at end of instructions.
Yeah.
Got that, Karen?
Yes, just one quick question. So are they to also give this certificate to the subcontractors to
Well,
complete?
at the point they become awardees, yes. But right now they're only applicants. So right now the only thing that they need to return with their full application is one certificate. If indeed they are successful in being one of the projects we recommend and are successful and they are one of the projects that City Council votes, and when we sign the contract with them, that's when they're going to, have to make sure as they move into the construction phase that their general contractors sign this form and the general contractors, all their subcontractors, their electricians and plumbers and carpenters, sign this form.
So should it say here for grant requests over 50,000, blah, 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 the grantee must sign the enclosed certificate? Because I guess, do they sign it with the application, right? And submit it with the application? So we should need to tell them to do that? Is it clear?
I guess we need to tell them to do it. Include a signed fair wage compliance certificate with the application.
That makes more sense.
And of course, this will be one of the items that we will be explaining at the workshop next month.
Okay, I think that's what we want now. Do you want me to read it?
Sure.
Okay, for grant requests over 50,000 involving construction activity, the grantee must include a signed certification with the application that they have not been found guilty of wage theft and will not use contractors, subcontractors found guilty of wage theft. A fair wage compliance certificate will be provided for your use. Is that will provide it for your?
It is actually going to be part of this instruction packet at the bottom of it. It's not that we're giving it to them at some random date. It will be available at that time.
Right, but they need to know they'll also have to provide that to their subcontractors. Or is that a discussion once they receive a grant?
Yeah, correct. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think we have to discuss it with people who aren't going to get recommended for funding.
Okay, all right, then I'm going to just
Yeah.
delete that sentence.
Yeah, but
Okay.
the fact that they need to know that they have to sign the certificate, and the certificate is part of this packet.
Okay, I think that does it.
You could just add a sentence at the end, certificate provided at end of this packet or something so that they know. But I mean,
Yep.
I think if they come to this section, they might think that they have to get a certificate, but it's the certificate is added at, see end of package or something like that,
Um,
And if we haven't, we also should clarify it that say non-municipal applicants, because clearly the park department doesn't need to do this. The Office of Housing doesn't need to do this. It's only the folks that are outside of city government that need to do it. Because there's already something in place as a city ordinance that requires the park department to do it.
So could we just put in there and just say not, so, could we just say for, I don't know, non-municipal
Non-municipal.
projects or, yeah.
Okay, for grant requests over 50,000 involving construction activity, the grantee must include a signed certification with the application that they have not been found guilty of wage theft and will not use this doesn't flow right, and will not use contractors, some contractors found guilty of wage theft. See certificate included in the application materials. Applies only to non-municipal projects.
Yeah.
Okay.
I need a colon there. Okay, so can we move on or are we all set?
Yep,
Making
move on.
notes? Okay, I think we had a brief discussion on this as well, under the narrative.
What page is that?
We, 6. It's under the narrative section. Letter C, feasibility and sustainability, number 2. Once the project is complete, how will it be sustained or maintained? The application for funding should include a maintenance schedule, if applicable, for city departments. For city department applications, please also include how the CPA investment will be maintained in future municipal budgets.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay. Then we can, the next one, 3, is there an operating pro forma when the proposal is complete? What exactly are we asking in plain language here? A
I don't even know what that
proforma.
means. I mean, that's for like, that's basically if you have a business, right? If you have
Right,
if it's a
exactly.
business venture, but that seems a little weird to be in here.
I agree. That's why I'm pointing it out. I don't think we need it unless someone wants to substitute something else for this.
Karen, where did that come from?
Originally, whoever made up the first application, it was in there.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't
it's been there
remember.
probably since year 1, and it could have been former committee member Ben Murphy, because I think he also helped with putting these instructions together. I have no problem with removing it.
Nah, neither do I.
Everybody
Good
okay?
catch, Karen.
Okay. Okay, moving down a little bit more. Okay, I did add this section here. It is important to contact the appropriate board commission as you may need to partner with a city department if the project is proposed on property owned by the city. See guide to proposing a CPA project below. If the project does not take place on city property, it is still a good idea to gather support from the agency related to the funding category. Letters should contain the date on which the board commission voted to support the proposal. See contact information for boards and commissions here. So there's a link where on the website, the city website. And then there's this helpful little chart here.
Yep, that's good. Thank you.
Okay. Maps, I did add an extra map location here, the citywide map. And then there's a plot map. So I don't know if you're okay with that.
Sure.
Okay, so again, we have this pro forma operating.
Got it.
I mean, when we're talking about something like Wayfinders or the grants are $250,000 and they submit a binder full of information, we do want that information, the business plan, right?
I'm not necessarily sure we
So.
I mean, so if somebody came along and said, here I am, I'm a private individual, I'd like to construct, or I'd like to rehab, I rehab a house, I'm asking for $250,000. I don't think we necessarily need to know how much rent that person is going to be charging, do we? Or what they're,
No, I don't think we do.
I think if they have federal or state credit, I mean, they do have to abide by the,
Well, yeah, they do, but I mean, yeah, obviously they do in that sense. Maybe it was a bad example. What if it was a historic renovation and somebody has a business, or let's just say it's like the drama studio. Are we requesting the financials from the drama studio because we gave them a grant? It seems a little strange.
Seems a little farther overstretching.
Yeah. Well, let's take it out then. We can always next year decide, gee, we should have kept it in and put it back in. I don't think it's crucial to the application process.
Okay, it's gone. All right, so this whole yellow highlight section. Do you want me to read it, or does anyone have any questions about it? It's a guide to proposing a CPA project. If your proposal is on open space and recreation, and then there are paragraphs on specifically how to go about doing that.
I read it earlier, so I don't need you to read it, but if other people do, speak up now.
No, I think this is a good section. I mean, I think it's going to maybe head off like the situation that we had with the Acorn tennis courts.
Well, right, and I think it's important for people to know what the process is so that, they don't get bumped up in the, weeds and find out when it's too late, causing frustration. So the only thing that I have down here that I wasn't sure should remain is this one section. Approval for work to structures owned by state or federal entities are exempt from LHD controls since they are higher levels of government. There are, however, both state and federal environment laws which trigger historic review of the proposed work by Massachusetts Historic Commission. That's like an almost, oh, by the way, if this applies to you, it's in there. So
yeah, I would take it out because the chances of a state agency or a federal agency applying to us for money, I think would be very slim. And if that happens, we will tell them verbally, yes, you may be exempt from local controls, but yet you're not exempt from oversight by the Massachusetts Historical Commission. But I wouldn't bother having that in there.
okay, all right, so we're gonna take that out. And then next is the Secretary of the Interior standards. Information to help explain what that process is, that their work will need to be reviewed by our historic consultant. And so anyway, that's the additions that I came up with. And
I know this is a small one, but do we need the word end at the end?
I don't know. I guess I put it in there because the application is so long.
Okay.
We can take
All right.
it.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we're done with this,
The only thing that I just want to double check on, Karen, can you go to whatever is the section that says go to your neighborhood council? I want to make sure that we've made that very clear that, it's good that you go to them and have a letters of support, but at the very least, we need proof that you've notified them of your application. And then the other thing that
all right, so it comes under attachments.
Yeah.
For all proposals, commitment letters for review revenue sources identified in the budget. B, letters of support. Applicants are encouraged to meet with the local neighborhood organization or civic group, if applicable, and obtain a letter of support. The SCPC requires proof that you have notified the appropriate neighborhood organization that you are applying for CPA assistance. Applicants may provide additional letters of support if you believe it will help your application. You can find the contact information for the neighborhood organizations here, and it's a link to the council website. And then it goes into, it's important to contact the appropriate board or commission, and that's what this little chart here on who to contact for each of the categories, the CPA categories.
Okay.
Is that enough, Bob, or do you want to change some of the wording? Or
I think it's enough. If not, we'll note it for next year. I mean, clearly, if you remember, we had several applicants this past cycle that, even though we had this wording in the instructions, failed to have either letters showing that they at least notified their neighborhood association, or failed to have anything that dealt with whatever governmental body owned the property in question. But yeah, I think what you've got there is fine.
okay.
So with that, does anyone else have any questions or concerns on the instructions for the applications?
No?
Yes, hearing none, then I'll take a motion to approve the instructions as modified.
I'll make a motion to approve the instructions as modified.
Thank you.
I
Second?
second.
All right. So we'll go with the vote. So Clinton,
Yes.
Juanita,
Yes,
Rhonda, Rhonda, you there?
she's muted.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Gloria,
Yes,
Lamar,
Yes.
and Bob is yes.
Oh, me too.
Oh, and Ralph. Sorry, Ralph. And Ralph.
That's all right.
Yeah, and Ralph
Yes,
is a yes,
yes.
yes? Okay.
Yes, I'm a yes.
Sorry about that, Ralph.
That's all right.
Okay. All right. And are there going to be any cover page changes this year, Karen?
No, not on,
Nope.
not unless there's something
Okay.
that you want to change.
Yep. I don't. Yeah. All right. Very good. And so we will get this up. Just make sure that it includes the adopted fair wage compliance certificate. So it's it's there with the instructions. Or is its own line item up there with the application cover sheet?
So I did want to mention one thing, that the discussion on item 7 of the compliance certificate, we are discussing in the next couple weeks about what the penalties would be. So we don't want to, do we want to make any mention of that with the certificate, or just, I mean,
No.
nothing?
I don't feel the need of, I mean, we will have it up quickly enough that it will be up there as our policy before anyone submits an application.
So the compliance certificate that we designed, it's not going to include that item 7 at all.
But it's not, well, I don't think, well, I defer to what Lisa and Kathy say, whether it needs to be an addendum, but it's not an item set 7. It is it is, the penalties for non-compliance. So they may say, yeah, it's a good idea, put it on the back so people know, but they may also say it's not necessary once you adopt it. As long as you put it on your website, you're good to go.
Okay.
So I guess my feeling is let's get the certificate up as it has been approved, because the penalties may go on the back of it, but they may not go on the back of it. We don't know at this point.
Okay.
All right. So now we're up to the administrator's updates.
I really don't have anything. Except to say, you know, most of you probably already know that David, I'm blanking on his
David Finn.
name now.
David Finn,
Thank
gone
you.
and forgotten.
Already forgotten, is leaving for Tennessee. He has a new opportunity for a position out there. So I guess from what my last conversation with Alvin was, they were looking for someone to replace him on the Historic Commission. So
Yeah, and now that you mentioned that, you reminded me that I need to write Vinnie Walsh to ask the commission to send us a new representative for the remainder of David's term, which is till the end of April, and then they can choose to reappoint that person or appoint someone else for a new 3-year term.
okay.
All right. And just as an update, I think we only have 1, 2, 3. Do we have 4 project contracts still to sign? Everything else is
5.
going through the signature process.
We have 5.
5.
Include,
Okay.
yeah, we could include the library. Yes.
Yeah. So it's the library. Oh, it's the drama studio, the museums, and then it's the 2 housing projects, Wayfinders and the building up on Main Street. Okay. We're doing well.
We are doing well.
Yep.
I actually
All right.
did write that down for my, there's really not much for updates, but yes, so the remaining contracts ready to complete probably this week is the East Springfield Library, the Kilroy House, and Byers Street or Wayfinder. So those are about ready to be signed this week. And then Main Street Classical and the Drama Studio, that just it's going to take a little bit longer, but the information is, you know, should be here soon. So I would think, I don't know, in the next couple of weeks, we should have everything signed perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, oh, and I did take a drive by the historic homes to see our signs or the plaques on the houses, and they looked good.
Oh, good.
Yeah, they looked good there. So,
All right. So with that segue, we will segue into the Historic Homes program. And for those of you that weren't at the last meeting, the subject came up. Ralph had suggested that since the planning department did not put in an application to continue the program this past cycle, and since we ended up with more money from the state than we had anticipated, that we might consider going to the city council with an off-cycle recommendation to continue the Historic Homes program. And he was going to be having a discussion with the planning department to see if they wanted to continue the program. And if not, we would take over the program and Karen would be the point person on that. So Ralph, take it away with what you know so far.
All right. So I did speak to Phil Drummy yesterday, and Phil is not interested. He gave the big thumbs down. He is a short, he's short a person. They're going to be hiring another person, but he said he felt as though between himself and Alvin that they could not take on the additional work required to run the program. He said it was a lot more work than they expected.
Now, is that something when they hire a new person, they might do it the following year or?
I personally, I don't think so. He was not at all hopeful on that project. So what he said to me is that he doesn't feel as though his group is qualified to vet the contractors. He felt as though that's something that the Office of Housing could do, but the Office of Housing refused to do that. So he just didn't feel as though, basically what he was worried about was that when the proposals would come in and they would get like 3 bids or whatever, that they couldn't look through them and say, yeah, this looks reasonable or not. That was his main concern. He was also concerned about the fact that expanding it would be, expanding it to the entire city would be even more work. So he said that there was something like 28 applications, I guess, that came in last year. They wound up, I think, giving out somewhere between like 10 and 12, I think. That's how much it came out to. That's how many they awarded, basically. They did it by lottery. And he did say that they vetted he didn't say they vetted the income, but they asked for the income eligibility of all of the applicants up front. And he said it took some time to quote unquote verify that. I'm not entirely sure what that really means, because it doesn't, they just asked for a copy of their W-2. So I guess verifying just means look at the W-2 and say, yeah, the person's name is the same. And that apparently takes a certain amount of effort. But yeah, he was not interested. That's the bottom line.
Too bad, a good program.
Yeah, he said he did like it, but
It was 8 grants. They originally were 9, but 1 dropped out.
oh, okay.
So
So I think it is still worth trying. And Bob, let me ask you. I think, didn't I see something from the CP or the Community Preservation Coalition saying that there's even more money coming in?
Correct. We have not yet received the figure as to how much more. But
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
because the state ended the last fiscal year with a budget surplus, they were able to have an additional amount of money. I think it was like $10 million deposited in the state trust fund for divvying up to CPA communities. So we don't know. I don't know if that's $50,000 more or $20,000 more. We will find out soon, I would assume. And we could make that part of it. I mean, right now, we have $160,000 more from the state than we had budgeted for. So we would use that as the reason is if we choose to undertake this project as to when we go to the city council as well. It's money that we didn't know we had. If by the time we go to city council we find out that we have extra money for the state, we could choose to increase the amount of what we're thinking of giving our own program.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess the only question that I have is, I think that if we're going to administer it, I think the first go-to would be to ask Karen to administer it, for obviously for more compensation. But the question I have along those lines is, what are the hurdles to accomplishing that? Knowing that we have some hurdles as far as like the RFPs. Do we have to put in an RFP? So let's just pretend for a minute that we say, listen, we're gonna allocate, like, I don't know, I'm gonna throw out a number, 10% of the money for administration or whatever it's gonna be. Do we have to put in an RFP for that if it's somewhere around $10,000 or $15,000, to administer it, or do we?
That's a question that we would have to ask procurement. I do not know what we would have to do in order to either remunerate Karen more or go out and find a truly part-time person who will run the program.
Right.
So that's something that we need to check with procurement on.
So let me ask Karen the question then. Is Karen, do you have? I mean, just being totally vague here, like, do you have availability? Like, if you come back and you say right now, no, I'm already full up. I can't possibly administer this, even for more money, then we need to figure out where to go from there.
yeah, I could take it on.
Okay.
I have the time.
All right. So that's good that avenue's open. All right.
Yep. And my guess is it should be with I think the issue of procurement can be the answer can be easily found, and we can deal with it. So
Okay.
So I guess in my mind, I guess the question is are folks interested in doing that? In which case we should take a vote. At the last time, I think when Ralph floated this idea, we were in agreement with him that this should not be just a McKnight Local Historic District program, but available to owner occupants in any of the local historic districts. So
So just to sort of like prep, because I'm not sure if Clinton or if Rhonda sort of are aware of the program. So Clinton and Rhonda, do you know what we're talking about here? I mean, like, I know you probably kind of do a little bit, but do you want me to explain a little bit more about this program?
Yeah, Ralph, explain it. It will refresh all of our memories.
Yeah, sure. So 2 years ago, the Office of Housing put in an application to create a pot of money it was a pilot program for the McKnight Local Historic District to basically give homeowners funds to either do porch repair or painting of their historic properties. We modified their proposal.
Ralph, excuse me. It was window repair or painting.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. You're right. It was window repair. So it was storm windows or window repair, I think, and painting of the properties.
Was it 2018?
We modified the program. 2019 application cycle, because they didn't put. No, maybe it was 2020 application cycle, and they didn't put one in 2021.
Oh. So you're right. I think it was the spring cycle of 2020, because they did not put one in the 2021 cycle.
All right, I'm
so it takes
obviously.
It takes a little time, obviously, for to go through the city council and all that. Yeah. So basically, they started the program. So let me back up a second. So we modified the program a little bit because they had originally come in and they asked for 100% reimbursement, no income verification. I was personally very uncomfortable with that, and so I sort of devised a sliding scale on. Based on the amount of income that the household has, ranging anywhere from 95% reimbursement if you're sort of down at the the very low level of income, all the way up to basically zero reimbursement if you're making two times the area median income. So basically, it came out to be if somebody was making, I think like 100% of the area median income, they wound up getting like a 45% reimbursement of their projects. And there was a cap of $25,000 awarded. So basically that would mean that if you were painting, if you need to have your house painted and you made about how much the area median income was, you'd get maybe like $12,000 or so, $12,000 reimbursement for your painting project. The city obviously got in about 24, 28 applications. They wound up doing a lottery and they gave out, I think Karen said originally 9, and then one person withdrew. So they had 8 people who did the work. COVID, I think, sort of slowed things down a little bit. This was a new program. And so only, I think, 2 of the projects actually got completed or even got close to being completed, and the rest are going to be done this current cycle, this current painting cycle.
Well, there is a third that's just about finished.
Oh, is there? Oh, good. That's
and
good to know.
There are 2 others that are in the process, and they have their banners up. So.
Oh, good. All right.
Moving along.
They're probably not painting in the dead of the winter now. I'm sure. But so yeah. So anyways. We wanted to try to see if we could continue on that project. It was supposed to be a pilot program for McKnight. And then, the thought was that we would maybe eventually that the Office of Planning would expand it, but they just kind of backed off of it because the person who was administering it, Scott Hansen, wound up retiring. and they're short-staffed over there, and they weren't too keen on the income verification part of things. They just wanted to give away just blocks of money, I guess, without checking to see if they're giving it to people who don't really, who make more money than others. So anyways, so the thought was that we as the CPC would put in an application, and obviously we would vote on it. Hopefully, if we pass it ourselves, we'd go on to the city council, and the city council would decide whether or not we would administer the program rather than Office of Planning and Economic Development. Does anybody have any questions about that?
You know what, listening to you retell your conversation with OPED, the stumbling in a very real problem too is how do you vet the contractors? So are we allowed, I mean, I'm not sure of municipal rules, are we allowed to say, okay, we have vetted these 5 contractors, so pick one?
No,
or
you cannot. I don't think you can do
cannot
that.
do that, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't think-
because how, that's a big deal to expect someone to vet.
Well, I don't think we're vetting them per se. I think that I believe that the way that they structured the program was that they asked for 3 bids. They asked for 3 proposals because that's the big challenge, right? I mean, if it was a tiny little house and somebody comes in and says the project's going to be $25,000, we want to sort of make sure that it's a legit situation, I guess. And so I guess the way to do that is to require the homeowner to submit three bids, I guess. I'm trying to look and see if I can find my documentation here, because I know that Alvin did send me at one point sort of the application process. I'm not going to be able to find it very easily though. But I think that's what he meant by vetting it, is that they wanted to look at they basically just look, I guess, to see if the bids passed the smell test, I guess. I don't know.
Right, but okay, so now so we see these 3 bids and say it's the middle bid, not necessarily the lowest bid, right? Maybe there's a relationship you have with one of these contractors and you'd prefer them to do your home rather than the lowest bid. So are we as the CPC going to select that one of 3, or is the homeowner, I mean, it's their house. They should be.
Yeah, that's a very fair question.
The homeowner gets to select their contractor, but the bottom line is if, let's say, we choose the middle contractor who has a cost of $20,000 to paint the house, and they choose to go with the high-end contractor who's charging $30,000, we are not necessarily giving them any more than $20,000. So yes, you can indeed, spend more money, but we're not necessarily financing that.
Yeah, I mean, we'd have to. That's certainly a very good question. It's something we'd have to work out. And I agree with what Bob said there. Is that I don't think we want to. I think we want to maybe use the bids to see what the fair cost is. Yeah, I mean I guess that's part of the challenge, right? Is how to do this in a fair way. I don't know the answer to that.
Karen, my suggestion is at least at one point, the Office of Housing had a program to help folks in the South End and the Six Corners neighborhood, and I forget whether it expanded to the North End. And my recollection of the program was you had to get a couple of bids. So why don't you have a chat with Bobby DeMusis at the Office of Housing to see how they handle it, as to whether getting those extra estimates are simply an idea to get a range of costs, or whether the Office of Housing then actually said, okay, well, you're going with Joe Schmo contractor. I don't think it was
so
that,
I'm looking at the way that the planning did it, and they said that they have to, what they have to put in with their application is a full detailed description of the proposed work, and a copy of at least one estimate from a qualified or licensed contractor. And then it says 2 additional estimates will be required if the project is selected. So presumably you've sort of got to go in there knowing that it's going to be, you got to bid for 25,000. If you get selected, now you got to come up with 2 more. And I guess it doesn't say at this point though how much you're actually going to be reimbursed.
So if
It
they-
sort of implies that you get whatever you pick, but I don't know if that's right.
They submit the first bid along with the application, and it's 25,000. So when they get 2 additional estimates, one comes in higher and one comes in lower. So do they go with the original estimate, or again?
Yeah,
Do we
I don't
make-
know. It doesn't say it
Yeah.
on this application.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where they don't want to deal with this stuff anymore. I don't know.
Yeah, well, you can see why it can get very sticky, and
Yeah, of
you know,
course.
to me, this program is to beautify Springfield, right? I mean, that's why we have this program, so that our homes are refreshed and deferred maintenance, you know, to help where we can. And I think being too strict with the program and demanding it just slugs
Well,
things
no,
up, you know?
No, but
But
on
we
the
don't
other
want a
hand,
black, we don't want a black eye.
Correct. We can't risk that someone gets their brother-in-law, who happens to be a painter, to come in and give an inflated contract estimate, and that's what we go with. I mean, so there needs to be some
Yeah,
way.
that
to
hits the
judge
papers,
that-
our entire program gets shut down.
Yeah, so we need that. So that's why a conversation with the Office of Housing would be very helpful, and you can report back at the next meeting. I guess the only other thing that I would raise for me, you know, besides expanding it to all of the historic districts, I think we need to expand the eligible categories. I think we need to help people who have leaky roofs as well, because water penetration is the thing that destroys historic buildings the most after fire. And the other thing I think we need to have help with is the repair of vacant and deteriorated porches. And we know that there are a bunch of them around because they've been before us in other applications. So I would hope that besides just window repair and painting, we would be looking at roof work for people who have leaky roofs and porch work for people who have substantial deterioration with their porches.
So Bob, I agree with you on the porches. I mean, and conceptually, I agree with you on the roofs. But I'm not sure I'm not sure we can necessarily justify the roofs. I mean, so it is, like Karen said, sort of beautification, right? I mean, one of the benefits is that we had, instead of we have this house, it's sort of,
Ralph, it's historic.
That's true. It is
preservation.
Okay, you're right. Touche. You're right.
Bob?
And that's why I say
I don't know,
leaky
though.
roof. So I would,
Gloria
I
has a
would
question.
structure it. Okay, so let me just finish my statement. I think it should be structured so that you need to have the proof, meaning the photograph of the leak on the top floor ceiling, as opposed to just someone who says, oh, I probably should get a new roof sometime, and here's this program, and I'm going to take advantage of it. But Gloria, all right, Gloria, I see your hand.
I was just gonna say, Bob, when I was doing contracts, when I was in the neighborhood council, and we would have a grant from the city, we always had to get 3 estimates. And then we would have to go with the lowest estimate.
What I was told by procurement is that, yes, you need to get the 3 estimates, but the lowest bid is not always the preferred one because they may not have the qualifications that are needed for the specific job. So you can't just lowball and expect to get the contract. You've got to have the qualifications to back that up.
Well, again, I'm just going back from what I had to do, that when I was looking for a new heating system, you had to get 3 bids for the heating system, and they had to be from qualifying contractors. In other words, it couldn't be someone who says, I'm a handyman, I can put in a new heating system for you. So, excuse me, so you would have to go and get estimates, written estimates that indicated what the work was. And then you would go with the lowest bidder. If you didn't want to go with the lowest bidder, you would then have to write a statement, I believe. I don't know for sure, because I know that when I did it, we always went with the lowest bidder. It worked out well for us.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And Lamar just had a comment. So Lamar, do you want to make it verbally?
I just said, why not just take an average of the three bids? And that way it's fair, because you have the median of the high, range from the high to the lowest bid.
Yeah. So, and that's another possibility.
It may be worth trying. But Bob, I want to
Yeah.
get back to the roof thing. I mean, I do agree with you that it is preservation. I stand corrected on that point. I guess the reason that I was always sort of like, the way that I sort of justified this in my head is that in a historic district, people have higher requirements that they need to be held to for their properties, right? As opposed to the rest of the city. So
Yeah.
with painting, you know, you can't vinyl side, you have to paint. With windows, you can't replace your windows, you got to fix them. Even with a porch, you can't take the porch off. But a roof,
Yeah.
although it is certainly critical to a house, it's a little bit harder to justify giving somebody a
Yeah.
roof replacement when, if they weren't in a historic district, they wouldn't, it's the same roof.
Qualify. Yep. No, you raise a good point, Ralph. So I concede to that. You know, as I've told Karen, I'm an incrementalist. I'm happy that if we expand so that deteriorated porches go in, we can always add roofs at a later date, assuming we like the program and want to continue it. Juanita, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was just thinking on roofs, what about a slate roof that, you know, is part of the original building?
Well, and I can say that in my years on the historical commission, we never required someone to replace a slate roof with a slate roof because of the cost. The cost is it's insane. It would be probably $75,000 to $80,000 to replace the slate roof. We always, what we did is we said, listen, the roof is, we verified that the roof was bad and needed to be replaced, and then we said, okay, then you can replace it with asphalt.
But what if they wanted to replace it with slate, and we have grants up to 30,000 or 50, whatever our number is going to be? Shouldn't they be allowed to do
A fair
that
question.
if they want to pay the balance? I mean, what?
It's a fair question.
And not to have, you know, and to eliminate roofs. I don't know if that's such a great idea too, because that is a critical piece of preservation. So if that's what they choose to do, and we can verify that it indeed needs to be done, what difference does it make if it's for a roof or a porch when both?
Well, the reason that I bring it up is because I can hear Paul Peter Nicolai's voice. If you recall, he was the person who opposed the CPA.
Really, he lost. He needs to sit down.
Well, I know he lost, but it would be a very persuasive argument on his behalf, which has no counter. Which he gets up and says, "Well, how come you get your roof replaced because you're in a historic district, and I don't get mine replaced, and I'm in a historic district? The roofs, it's the same roof. We don't have any different requirements. We both need a roof." I can understand siding, you know, I can vinyl side, and that's for, you know, that's cheaper or whatever. And you have to paint, but the roof is the roof.
Well,
but like
if
maybe
qualified, why wouldn't he have, you know, again, it goes to the qualifications of being eligible to have it done.
But you're just basically giving money to people just because they live in a historic district at that point.
Right, because we're invested in that. We're invested in those historic neighborhoods as a community.
And we're not invested in the non-historic neighborhoods.
So let's go. Rhonda has her hand up. Rhonda?
Yes,
Sorry.
I agree with Karen. on that. I think if you're gonna value the historic district and allow certain repairs and roof, if a person has a severe leak and they can verify and, qualify for it and they're willing to pay the difference, I think that's a good option.
Okay, Gloria has her hand up.
I'm not sure I understood what Bob was saying about Peter Nikolai, but if,
Ralph was
Oh,
saying.
sorry.
That was me.
if you're saying that he had,
Oh, what I was,
if he
Okay.
has vinyl siding on his house and he lives in a historic district and he wants his roof repaired, I don't see how it qualifies because the house is no longer historic. It's just a house in a district.
that wasn't really the point I was trying to make. The point I was trying to
Okay,
make is that I was always comfortable with the program because there are additional costs of having a house in a historic district, meaning that you can't just go down to Home Depot and get your cheap vinyl windows and replace it. You can't just call up Final Vinyl and have them vinyl side your house. You can't take your porch off, right? If you didn't live in a historic district, if your porch was falling down, you could just take your porch off, right? So it costs more money in a historic district for those items. You're held to a higher standard. But a roof, in my opinion, it's the same. There's no difference between having a roof in a historic district and having one in a non-historic district. It's a roof either way. You don't have to have a better roof or a more expensive roof if you're in a historic district. So by including roofing, what we're then saying is, well, we're not compensating people for the extra costs of living in a historic district. We're compensating them because they're in a historic district. Even though the cost is the same, we're going to give it to the people in the historic district and not to the people outside because we think that those properties are more important,
Well,
basically.
So if
again,
somebody
goes to
wanted,
preservation. I mean, I understand your point, Ralph. You're saying that if we take the slate roof and put it aside and that we're just doing an asphalt roof, then that's not really historic preservation because it's just an asphalt roof. But where it comes in is that it's on top of a historic home to preserve the inside of that home or the integrity of the house itself. So there is a
That's true.
nuanced difference there.
Gloria, you have something?
well, I was gonna say something, but I lost my train of thought. So anyway, it was about the roof. But let me just say, I think that the discussion is very good, but maybe we need to do a subcommittee of this to kind of hash it out to present to the committee.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So
Because we did have some other suggestions on how we might administer the fund. Like, for instance, maybe we don't have to ask anyone that applies for a grant. If it's over 5,000, then they need to go through the regular process of verifying their income and all that. But if it's, say, 5,000 and under, anyone that applies, they just get the 5,000 to do the painting or whatever. I mean, I think it would
So-
simplify it and it might just, get more houses started. Anyway.
That's
So I guess-
true, but there's,
So,
There-
so
oh,
I
I'm
guess
sorry, go ahead, Bob.
here's what I want to do. I guess I want to take Gloria's suggestion, and we will have a subcommittee to hash this out. And Ralph, you will be on the committee because it's your idea, and Karen, because
All right.
you would be administering it, I'll be on it. Is there anyone else that would like to serve on it? Perfectly fine to have more people, but I'm content with a 3-person subcommittee.
No, I would like to join.
All right, so Rhonda will be part of the subcommittee as well. So Karen, what you can do is to send out a doodle poll to the 3 of us, and let's pick a date where we can have a Zoom discussion of some of these other options as well, so that we can report back to the full committee next month. That sound
Okay.
like a plan?
Sure. Do we want
That's
to
good.
ask maybe Alvin to come in and talk with us a little bit about the issues that he's had at all? Or, I mean, to just get some ideas on how we could, you know, jump off what they've done and perhaps improve it or change it?
Yeah, I think that would be, if Alvin's willing to join us to share his expertise with, you know, the year that they've run it and what they've discovered and what they would do differently if they were interested in doing it in the future, but they're not. But sure. So I guess the issue is you can check with Alvin and then include him on the doodle poll. If Alvin says, nope, I'm not interested in attending regardless of when it is, then we won't bother with that.
Okay.
And in the meanwhile, though, Karen, do check with the Office of Housing as to how they ran their home improvement program.
Yep, I have a note.
All right. So that ends our regular agenda items. Karen did send out everyone a request for an off-cycle application coming from the McKnight CDC. Because it came in after the agenda was sent to the city clerk for posting, it didn't make the 48-hour notice. So we can't really do much with it tonight. Just please read it, and we will be discussing it at the next meeting.
So should I invite the party because they would
No.
like to speak with us?
No, we will make the decision as to whether we'll accept an off-cycle application based on the information provided.
Okay.
Sounds like a long meeting, this next one, with all these
Yeah.
carryover.
Yes. Yeah.
So-
Well, that and plus we have the workshop.
Right,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
speaking of the workshop, if I could ask everyone or remind people that you do need to register for the workshop because we're using a different login and we need to record the people that are coming in. So you do need to register for the February 1st meeting. If there's any, you know, networks that you have or email service or whatever, if you could forward the event that's on our Facebook page, the information to get the word out, that would be good, or to your own networks. Share what's on the page, that would be great. So, thanks. And just another thing, when this is recorded and played back on Facebook, the video only records people who are visible. So right now, it just looks like Juanita and I are having a conversation. Yeah, so it doesn't look like this Brady box at all. So if we could have your faces up there, it would be better, because at one time it was just me there because everyone logged off or hid their face. So it just looks a little odd once it shows up in the recording. So thank you everyone for just showing your faces now. I appreciate that.
All right. So unless someone has something else to bring up, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
All
I
right,
second.
Second. All right. So we'll just do a voice adjournment vote. So all in favor of adjourning? Say aye.
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 All right.
Bye,
Well,
everybody.
very good. Thank you, everyone, for being here. A happy and healthy
Happy New Year.
2022 to you all. And we'll see you on February 1st for our workshop. And then once the workshop ends, we will have our regular meeting. All right. Take
All right.
care
Good
now.
night, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.
Everybody.